our viewers chime in here. We have lots of men watching. Do you notice the little things? I'd really like to hear. Thank you so much for tuning back into Second Act TV. I want to welcome Robert Manni back to Second Act, the author of The Guy's Guide to Love and host of Guy's Guy Radio and TV. Robert, thank you so much for joining me again.
Always a pleasure, Silka. Thank you for having me.
Well, I love these conversations with you. And we just finished a segment, I'll link to it, about what women over 50 going back on the dating scene, what they need to know about men over 50. In this segment, what I want to focus on is go from dating to relationships. What is it that we in this stage of life need to understand about men? And as usual, I reference certain things out there that certain people give advice. Is this really what we should listen to? And this particular one is written by a woman and who said that she wrote it with the advice of her husband. And the first one is that what men want women to know is we can only do one thing at a time. And that because women are multitaskers, they tend to maybe interrupt a man when he's watching TV or doing something else. And that leads to frustration in communication and, to all kinds of conflict. So is that true? Are men, they can only do one thing at a time?
Well, I think that for how men and women live, I think women are much more used to multitasking. That's just how they are, and I say that's a credit to them. I think historically, and maybe in our culture in the past 100 years or so, men have had the time to focus on one thing, and it's nice that when we can do that. And a lot of people have that type of mindset too. A lot of guys, but women are just natural multitaskers, and men are learning to be better multitaskers. So that's how I would respond to that.
Yeah. Well, but do we as women need to be ultra or hypersensitive to that? I mean, does that lead to relationship conflict? Because if he's thinking about something and you bring something else up, you're not going to be heard.
I think it's something that women need to ferret out about a guy to see if can he, walk and chew gum at the same time and maybe juggle, because you have to do that to succeed nowadays because there's just so much going on. You have to always be on, it seems like, and then people, they lock onto the devices and everything. So I think everybody's multitasking all the time to a fault.
Yeah.
And I think it would be better if people paid more attention and did more one thing at a time. So it's a slippery slope, and it's a balance that people have to find that what works for them. And if a woman is concerned that a guy can only do one thing at a time, she can observe that pretty quickly and see how adaptable. They say you can't teach an elephant to tap dance. I guess that's the same with men over 50, right?
That's funny.
It's worth giving a try.
That's really funny. So the next point she makes is that what men would say, that they want women to know that we appreciate the little things, that it may not be in the form of a flower or date night like a woman would appreciate, but that I'm going to talk from a man's perspective here, we are simple creatures and appreciate the small things more than any woman would ever imagine. I have trouble with that, but I'll mention that after I throw it to you.
Well, let's start with the truth. I think men are simple creatures, and I say that in a good way. I don't say it in that's like they're dumb. I think they're simple in that a lot of times they do one thing at a time, and there's nothing wrong with that unless you can't adapt.
Right.
I think that men are not that great at paying attention, particularly in relationship to women, who I think are far greater at it. And I think that leads to a lot of women dumping men because they're not picking up on the signals. They're not reading between the lines. They're not doing things proactively until they're being told something has to be done. They're not going out looking for things I can do to make the relationship better. So in that sense, I don't think men appreciate the little things the same way women do. And so I would have to disagree there.
I totally disagree. When I read, I almost laughed because and I think of me and Paul, and I realize not everybody's like me and Paul. Paul, he notices nothing, And no offense to Paul, I love Paul. That's not what I'm saying. But no, he doesn't notice the little things. It has to be a big thing before he'll notice anything. And I found most men to be like that. They absolutely don't. I think my opinion is my opinion. I think that since she wrote this with her husband, that he said that maybe just for some brownie points. I just totally disagree with that. So. And our viewers chime in here. We have lots of men watching. Do you notice the little things? I'd really like to hear.
Well,
if
there's a language thing too in terms of how people hear things. For instance, my wife and I were talking the other day, and I was like, "Stop nagging me." I was just joking, and she said, "I'm just pointing things out." And that's and it's so
I like
true
that.
because women point things out to make the relationship better, and men take it as, "Oh no, stop, please." And it's just the miscommunication.
Right.
Both people have the right intentions, and particularly women in pointing things out. And a lot of times guys are like, "Oh, again." So it's just one of those things. So who knows how these points
Yeah.
were developed by this couple.
Right, exactly. The next one, don't mistake our kindness for weakness. That we've all heard of the women who are attracted to the bad guys, but that strength, real strength and courage in a man is compassion, kindness, and tenderness. What do you think?
Well, I mean, those are great attributes, but this sounds more and more like a woman writing from her own head about women, and instead of about men, because I don't think men have ever been criticized for being too kind. A lot of times they can be kind of hard asses about stuff, and they need to lighten up and be a little bit more empathetic and sympathetic and gentler. And not every man, but in certain situations, men can be gruff. I know from my own personal experience, can be that way, and you have to get past the exterior. So this sounds more like something of a woman speaking about women. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think maybe what they're pointing out here is that women tend to be attracted to bad guys, or the bad guy versus the nice guy, and that's a whole other discussion as well. But again, if we're in a relationship already, I don't know how that relates. Again, I don't. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, okay, next, we care less about looks than you think. And they say here, have you ever heard the saying, women dress for other women? And then she writes, from what I've heard from countless men, that men see women as most beautiful in their most natural form of themselves.
Well, I think there's some truth to that last part of the statement. And I don't think men go for the hair necessarily. Like, it's not about the bag and the makeup and the hair per se, but the overall package. Men still do a lot of shopping with their eyes, and they're very visual. And I think this sounds again like a woman writing about women than a woman writing about men, because I think men are very visual, and I think they do care about looks a lot, to a fault.
I agree. I agree. I think, again, this sounds like something that this is what a woman would like a man to think. And I'm not saying that
Right.
I mean, I'm really not saying that this is totally wrong. I think perhaps, to really be totally stuck on looks, looks go away, looks
Right, of
fade,
course.
and that, attraction runs deep. It does run deep. But I think this, I don't know, it minimizes it a little bit. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really agree with that as well. The worst thing, here's the next one. The worst thing you can do is put us down. This I think I agree with. That criticism is a man's worst nightmare. That's the worst thing you can do. Is it the worst? I mean, I know criticism is bad. Is it the worst?
Well, I would flip this around and say, couldn't women say this about women? Like, the worst thing you can do is put us down. And I think for women, that's pretty, they don't like that at all. Well, fact of the matter, nobody likes to be put down, but I think guys deal with a lot of garbage at work and in other places, and they make fun of each other. We constantly bust chops. So the putting down things, it depends on your personality. You can let a lot of things slide, but a
Yeah.
lot of times women are sensitive, and I say this is a good thing. And then if you put them down and make them feel bad, particularly when they're pointing things out to make the relationship better, I think that's a really bad thing to do, and I think they really don't appreciate that at all.
Yeah, I think the other point here is that what she points out, that men really want to make a woman happy, that's their, one of the number one things in a relationship, and then when they're criticized, that hurts pretty deep. And I mean, is that true? Is that what a man's always focused on in a relationship, to make us happy?
Unfortunately, probably not as much as they should be focusing on that, and it's almost a separate issue than being put down for it or for anything else. So I think they're two separate issues, and nobody wants to be put down. And I think men need to do a far better job of being sensitized to the fact that they need to make their woman happy. I think that's really important because you want to share joy together. And a lot of times guys just focus on themselves. Guilty as charged. That's kind of where we are sometimes. And it's not right. And we have to do a better job at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, we could talk about this forever. It's interesting. I think my whole thing with this particular article is that I think has a lot of sugar coating that when we need to dig a little deeper what this is really about. The next one, we think a woman's most attractive quality is her confidence, that there's nothing more attractive to a man than a woman who can hold her head up high.
Well, I think it's not the number one thing. I think it should be more and more important. That's a really good quality that men are looking for in a woman. That you want somebody who has self-esteem, of course. And the same thing, though, you flip it around. Women are attracted to guys with confidence, not arrogance. So they want to see a dude who's comfortable in his own skin, and he can, step up, and he's not going to be too nervous around you, etc. So I think this is one you can flip around both ways. All of these things, Silka. The intentions are there. The lady who's writing this article has good intentions, but as we know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, no, right. I mean, it is. It's the article is written with absolutely good intentions. I think it's wonderful that she wrote it with her husband. And again, I think there's just a lot more deeper things there and this is why we have you here, that men don't tend to tell women what they really think, or they tend to say what they think the woman would like to hear.
That's
and
correct.
and some of it is true, some of it is not. So we kind of want to, dig a little deeper, as I said before. Lastly, we want to be your friend and your lover just as much as a woman doesn't want to play mommy. The man doesn't want to be treated like a child. That's true, right?
That's just human beings. I don't
Yeah.
really know if there's anything about, I mean, the man doesn't want to what man wants to be treated like a child unless it's some type of fetishy thing or whatever. I don't know. I think men want to be treated like men, and women want to be treated like women with due respect both ways. A two-way highway. That's how
Yeah.
it works. So if I don't think women they may subconsciously be with a guy who it has daddy, representation there. That happens, and vice versa. That a guy could end up with a woman who has some of the maternal qualities of his mom or whatever. Hey, that's just showbiz. You never know what you're going to end up with, and that can happen because that's human nature. But beyond that, I don't think any male is looking has an issue with I don't want to be treated like a baby. I've never heard a man say that. I guess it could happen, but I mean, if a woman is treating a guy like a baby, then you get what you get. It is what it is. So if the guy puts up with that, he puts up with that. If that makes her happy, that makes her happy. I would think that you would have two unhappy people there in that relationship.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I actually think this is a good thing to point out, but I think it's totally subconscious. It's not something a man, don't treat me like a child. It's just something that happens, and as women, we do fall into that role. When we can do things better, we can do it quicker, we can do it whatever. All of a sudden, you're caregiving you're treating the man like a child. That is something that we need to be more aware of. But like you said, it just kind of happens. So you just have to maybe take a step back if you're listening to this. Am I doing this? Am I treating him, like a child? Because that can kill the romantic part of the relationship. So I do agree with that. Again, this is a topic we can talk about forever. There are so many, interrelationship things that are so important, in order to have a happy, long-lasting relationship. And we'll talk about all those on another segment as well. Is there anything else you want to add here, Robert, that you think is important?
Actually, there is. I think with all of this stuff, I think people spend far too much time thinking about relationships here instead of here. And if they listened more to their heart and followed their heart more, I think they would get to more of what they want versus overthinking from up here.
I totally agree with you. That's a really great perspective, Robert. Thank you. As usual, we will link to all of your information, to your book, to your website, to your radio show, Guys Guy Radio. I mean, you have such terrific guests on there. Everybody, please do check it out. And your new YouTube channel that's starting to take off too. So thanks again for your time, and I'll look forward to welcoming you back on Second Act TV.
Can't wait. Thank you, Silke. Thank you, everybody.
If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too, and we'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.